A small but dedicated group who have put in the hard yards, 37,182 yards to be exact. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome representatives of the Roxburgh Trail Charitable Trust.
Our vision for Central Otago is that it will be a national and international destination for cycling and walking. Why? Because we've seen how the trails in our area rejuvenate small towns. They provide tourism opportunities and give great community benefits. To achieve this vision, we've had to rely on community groups, trail trusts and volunteers. And you've had trail trusts present to you before, but these guys are unique. They were born with hard hats on, nothing was impossible, and against all the odds, the stunning Roxburgh Gorge Trail is now open for business and delivering the dream to our area.
Hi everyone, I'm Barry. It's Tony and Bernie who are helping me out. Our other trustee couldn't make it, unfortunately. So this is what we took on. It's pretty spectacular, as you can see. Roxburgh Gorge, Alexandra at the left-hand side, right up the top end there. We were told in no uncertain terms when we started this thing that, hey, we wouldn't be able to do it. It was pretty much impossible. We would stuff up the environment and ruin the heritage and all the rest of it. Well, we proved the doubters wrong. We knocked the bugger off, and it's working pretty well at the moment. So, putting it into perspective in Otago, you'll see the Roxburgh Gorge there in that little green circle. Dunedin's somewhere under the cloud. Was yesterday too, of course. Okay, so who are we? We started as a small working group in 2008 with support from a couple of community boards. They funded our feasibility study. The Great Rides concept very nicely came along in 2009, 2010, and we set up a trust. New Zealand Cycle Trails, we put in a funding application, that was successful. And very early on, we engaged with the landowners. We gained signed agreements in principle to allow property access. Additional construction funding was received from Central Lakes Trust and also from the Otago Community Trust. A construction manager was appointed and the job of marking the trail alignment began, much of it in winter. I worked with this fellow here, Tim Dennis, and we eventually achieved satisfactory grades and alignments.
So the trust eventually overcame all the obstacles that have been thrown at them. To be honest, there was a couple of the local protagonists we could have chucked in the river at times. Contractors endured extreme heat. We have extremely hot days and long days, and in the winter we have very short days and extremely cold days. Snow was thrown at them, and so was the wind, but they got through. There were mountain sides of schist, and they had to be blasted away. And at times this trail sits 80 metres above the river on almost vertical slope, so I mean there was plenty of obstacles to get over. We discovered areas of endangered species of vegetation, and there was historic mining sites that we had to work around as well.
Okay, so in terms of construction, our objective was to construct a family-friendly trail right through the 35 kilometres of challenging terrain. Well, we've got about 21 of that done so far, and we've got a boat trip in the middle. It was very challenging terrain, so the construction teams had to be skilled and innovative. Their workmanship was of an exceptionally high standard. Wilson Contractors won the Hines Construction Award for projects up to $1 million in 2013. Trail user feedback has been of exceptionally high regard, and the boat trips are now an accepted point of difference for our trail. The trail's proven to be very stable, being well used. Support from volunteers, including the trustees themselves, and participating landowners has been willingly given and is another key to the success of the trail.
Hey, but did you know tectonic forces have shaped the Central Otago landscape? The Clutha River has carved its way through the schist and quartz rock, collecting gold on its way. The constant weathering has created a unique landscape that is breathtaking to its visitors. The gorge attracted kaitahu in search of food as they travelled to the western Panamu grounds and was modified by early European settlers in the search of gold. More recently, it's taken on its present form when flooded as part of the Roxburgh Hydro project in the 1950s.
The flora and fauna in the gorge itself is quite unique. It was obviously once home to Maori as they hunted eastern moa through there. Now we find a lot of kariarea, the native falcon, and piwakawaka, the fantail. They frequent the gorge, along with geckos and skinks. Although the gorge was invaded by wild thyme and other exotic plants from old miners' huts, much indigenous shrubland still survives with a lot of Kānuka, which you see on the left-hand side there. You've got kowhai, mountain tahino, some of which we saw, of course, yesterday at Orokonui. There's also mingi-mingi, matagari, desert broom. Alluvial gold was found there by Hartley and Riley in 1862, and initially it was extracted with sluice boxes and Californian pumps, and finally with dredges. And in fact, we actually had the very first hydroelectrically powered dredge. That's the 14-mile one, and you see it on the left-hand side of the picture there. It was operating in the gorge around 1900, along with other steam-powered dredges. Doctor's Point also is a really interesting place to visit, and it was an old high river terrace that was sluiced out using water supplies from the local Shanty Creek.
Archaeological surveys were prepared by the University of Otago and signed off by the Historic Places Trust. Many huts, bivvies, water races, gold workings and artefacts were identified during these surveys. The Narrows slip forms part of the flat top hill fold, and although movement is only a few millimetres a year, expert geological opinion was sought before work was started on the construction of the trail. 2 routes were considered. The lower red line being the final route of the trail, forcing us to narrow the width of the trail to 1.5 metres in places, and the installation of a boardwalk over the most active sector of the slip.
So in terms of managing the trail, how did we get on there? We were told that a boat ride between Doctor's Point and Shingle Creek would never ever work and it would be miles too expensive. That was mainly by the locals. Well, it does work. It's a distinct point of difference to other trails, and international visitors simply love it. Probably got more money to pay for it too, I guess. User pays tags and passports were introduced to fund maintenance without impinging substantially on the ratepayer. Uptake's slow but acceptable. We've got other funding from the Government Trail Maintenance Fund, some untargeted council funding, and other local funding also helps. Voluntary help's been huge, with thousands of hours invested, and we have input from independent volunteer groups, KACB, Keep Alex Clow Beautiful, donations, and also the Alex Harriers.
So has the trail been a success? You bet it has. Already it's generating $1.1 million in income to our district. There are 11 full-time employees employed on the trail, and on all the scales that you can measure a trail by, it's scoring high 9s out of 10s. So thanks to these volunteers, not only have they rejuvenated some of our towns, they've actually saved them. And I'll just let you in a bit of a secret to see how far our trustees will go to make sure they're providing the perfect experience. This lovely lady over here has just finished on Tuesday a 3,000 kilometre bike ride from Cape Reinga to Bluff, checking out the other trails just to make sure ours is at the top of the scale.
Number 1.
Right, before we get tackled, planning for the future. Our main priorities here are obviously complete stage 3 once farm tenure reviews are finished. We want to install new and improved information panels, implement smart promotional and marketing strategies and new commercial activities, encourage sporting events utilising both the lake and the trail, explore opportunities for heritage and Indigenous plant restoration programs, and also to develop a long-term management strategy for both trails to ensure their future success. So thank you for listening, and go hunt some rabbits.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.